This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about why the plutoligarchy always wins the class war. To win a war, we need to understand our enemy. We need to know him. We need to have efficient propaganda in order to also win the propaganda war. That's why that's why I do not remember who said it, but the first casualty of war is the truth. And you can, and that is evident. The propaganda war that is going on, that's going on in our countries, in the European Union, because we are also the enemies. They have two enemies: the so-called domestic enemy and Russia in this case. So they have the propaganda that is against us as well, like the plutoligarchy. They are always waging a war against us, especially a propaganda war, a brainwashing. I mean, it's about it's a culture war, it's an ideological war, besides being an economic and a political war. And the reason why they always win it is exactly because they know us and we don't know them. And by them I mean we do not care enough to know about the economy, finance, macroeconomy. We don't want we I mean, it's not interesting. I can understand it. It's not just, but we need to understand it in order to understand our enemy. And the plutoligarchy or oligarchy, I don't know which way is better to spell it, which one is correct. They want to keep us confused. They instrumentalize us, they divide us, they use all the tools, and of course they also pay. They instrumentalize the professional managerial class in order to do their bidding. That's why the class system, the class-based society, is not only the class on the top. That's the hierarchy. That's the division of subdivision that also is part of the class war. So we cannot only think that is the ones on the top. Of course, the ones on the top, they are the most important because there is the disparity of wealth and power is so great that they are really in control. But they alone, they could not do it. That's why they need all these hierarchies and these professional divisions and these, and of course they need to bribe them. They need to reward them in order to have them on their side, not on our side. And our problem is because we do understand injustice, social and economic injustice. We do understand many moral issues, but we do not understand the mechanisms, and they do not understand the mechanisms they use, the fraudulent, the criminal mechanisms they use in order to accumulate so much wealth. That's not because Just that's why I always talk about it's not about, there is a merit on them. And the merit they have, most of them, is because they do not care at all what means they need to use in order to achieve their goals. Exactly like in warfare. It's the same. It's exactly the same. They just do not care what kind of weapons they need to use in order to achieve their goals. And again, they can pay to academics. They can use the non-profit industrial complex. They can use the PR industrial complex. They have all the tools on their side, and we only have one tool, and our tool is resistance. And by resistance, knowledge, and all we can do to acquire knowledge that expose them, that we can see them naked, which means that we can understand their schemes and scams. That's very important to understand it. If we want to be, I do not mean that we want to become because it's very difficult for us to ever be able to be in the same level playing field, because of many reasons, but at least that we can understand how the system works, how the system that makes them filthy rich, that makes social inequality grow, that makes more people be on the destitute, and all the problems we have. People are poor, are more powerless, and the interesting part is because we do not know how the mechanisms through which they really plunder the real economy and they take over the real assets. We do not understand it, so therefore we are prey of the far right, nationalist and populist and even fascist, because they tell us that the problem is the communism. Is the communism. It's always, and this rhetoric, the way they are able to weaponize it, it's, I mean, we should be smarter than that, but we are not, because we buy into the wrong narratives, fake narratives about the economy, about meritocracy, about working hard. There are no people working. Of course, there are lots of people working hard, and most of them are in our class, and they are not rewarded because of that. Even in many professions that used to be to get a nice salary, they do not have it anymore. In many countries, in supposedly rich countries, because they have been, at least for four decades, destroying social democracy, which was the best system that capitalism could, that was able to keep capitalism in a to keep capitalism in a leash. So that is this is gone. There is a few vestiges of it, but because while they did it, just by changing what is taught at school, especially, but in the fields of economy, social sciences, and I mean, by every psychology and everything, they just try to make everything that the knowledge has been instrumentalized, the social sciences, the humanities, to fit the interests. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is the reality. To fit the interests of the plutoligarchy or oligarchy. That's how. That's what has been happening, and they have changed. They use the law. They have all the tools, and that's why this is a war in many a multi-level. In a multi-level war. That's why we cannot understand it just through the lenses of Marx. I mean, I think Marxist lenses are important, are necessary, but it is not just. We need to have. We need to understand. How they use psychology, sociology, how they use all the propaganda and everything they use in order to keep us not in the state of ignorance, which means not knowing only, but just filling us, colonizing our brains with narratives that just give us a perception of the world and a perception of ourselves, of human condition, that is fake, that is not correct. And then they change our behavior, they train us in order to behave in certain ways and to think in certain ways that is against our interests as citizens. As people, as human beings. We do need to make, to be more diligent, to study them. We need to study our enemy, to understand. To understand what they do and how they do it, to manipulate us, because we need to start by understanding that we are manipulated, that many things that we believe are fake, do not fit the reality. They are just created in order to make us perceive reality in a way that the amazing thing that makes us acceptable for us, that many injustices, that many laws and policies, like austerity, political austerity, because most of the austerity is politically motivated, has nothing to do with economics, and manufactures scarcity as well. It is done in a way that is to destroy, to disempower us, to make us more dependent, like that is there is an incentive to be in permanent debt. Even from when we are a student, that we already can, if we want to have a for the ones that are not middle class or upper middle class, they need to go into debt if they want to get a course that they not even know if they are able to get a job, a good paid job. So the idea that is that to keep us in debt through all our adult life, which means that we cannot afford to fight and to learn and to organize and unite, because we are going to lose everything that we try to have in this private property paradise. For whom? And this is very, most people do not seem to care about understanding it, or at least enough, because in order to have a strategy, if we want to have a strategy, we need to be conscious about to know our enemy, to know their strategies, their tactics, in order to be able to have a fight that can be winnable. Otherwise, we will be always in the losing side. It took me the 2007-2009 crisis, that's still going on, in order to start to understand that economics and banking and finance are tools for the wealthy. It's nothing about to run an economy smoothly, to make it functional. No, the law is the same. It's about creating an environment that allows them to accumulate more wealth, not only in their native countries, but across the world, to disempower people everywhere, taking over territories through supposedly investment, and now through green investment, And they just, with fake money, with fictitious money, the way they create money to serve each other's interests, they just take over and make the laws to protect them in ways that are unacceptable. Actually, they are evil. That's why we need to understand them, because they are damaging us and they are damaging other peoples. They do not allow many countries in the global south, especially in Africa, also in Latin America and elsewhere. Many countries are not allowed, cannot develop because of the existing system. And at the same time, we are not benefiting us. The ordinary citizenry is not benefiting of that system. We are actually being also suffering the consequences of this of the existing system. But we need to why is that? Is it because of immigrants? And is it because of communists? Can we be a little smarter than that? Can we not understand that they are scapegoating us? they are just using. That's not because everything is good, everything is everybody that comes for looking for a job is a good person. Of course not everybody is a good person, but most people come first because I mean our ruling classes are ruining their countries in many ways. Not only, it's many ways. And then they need to look. They have to. Where can they go? Where did we go? Why did we went to America, and to South America, and to other parts to colonize them? And what were we looking for? Many of us for the poor class, looking for opportunities to have a better life. That's what the people are doing. Not all of us that went abroad looking for opportunity were colonizers, in the sense that we are just wanting to do bad things. We are just looking for opportunities. So the problem is that we are influenced by a certain system, an existing hierarchy, and a certain form of organizing our societies and the economy, that we just become tools again. Sometimes our behavior just, not sometimes, it's most of the time, reflects the system where we live. Because it's normal. That's the normal thing. Not only our culture, but the economic system, the political system. And these people, that's why I try. That's why we cannot just, by its face value, the narratives that are sold to us by the far right parties and organizations and people, trying to blame the problems that have been created by the capitalist class, by oligarchs and plutocrats, by the neo-colonialist policies and imperialist policies of the West, especially by the Americans, but also by other countries. And now they are trying to convince us that our problems is because of the communists. Which communists? And the immigrants, and the woke culture. I mean, it's not because, again, they are not. What they say is not an absolute lie, but it is a lie nevertheless, because it's not correct, it's inaccurate, is not based, is just to manipulate, it's just to prey on our anger, because we are disappointed, because we are outrageous with the mainstream politics. But mainstream politics are not left-wing politics. There's been 44 decades of neoliberalism. 4 decades of neoliberalism that have been hijacking, that neoliberals have been hijacking the so-called center left, which is the ones that the far right They even call the liberals, they call them communists, or at least they say the communist policies. I mean, this is just this is not, this is absolutely, this is totally wrong. But does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. Because in a class warfare, if we do not understand if we do not even can identify our enemies, we are fucked, okay? This is not about that every person, every individual, every citizen has the right of the choice, political choice, whatever choice. But, I mean, not every choice has the same consequences. And I'm not asking you to become a communist. I'm just asking you to ask questions, to see if things fit, if they have when you are building a puzzle, the pieces need to fit together. And we need, if there are pieces from another puzzle, or pieces that are just manufactured, and you try to fit them, they do not fit there. And we need to understand that if we want to build a picture, if we want to understand reality, we need to put these little pieces together in order to see the whole picture, because we really need to see and understand the whole picture. We need to look for fake pieces that they are just to confuse us. They are just mixed into the box just to confuse us. Because that's the point. They want us to use us, and that's the point that many people do not understand the right-wing parties. Because they want to use us, but they need to confuse us to use us. These narrative strategies and framing, the cognitive linguistic framing, this is very well known. That's why we need to know it as well. How it is used to manipulate us, to manipulate our perception of reality. Because politics is not only about discussing the problems that you can see, that are obvious, okay? That there are people begging in the streets, that there is unemployment, that there is inflation, okay? That there is a housing problem. No, that's these problems that everybody can identify. The problem is not only to know why these problems exist, what is responsible and who is responsible for it, but to understand the system and always cui bono. That's that one we all I think we all understand it, that we always need to understand cui bono. So many people still do not understand that we need a left wing, a really left wing, that understands class, that puts class at the center, that let me put it this way, that can analyze reality through the lenses of class warfare. That's to me one of the that's something we need to learn. We also need to understand where our prejudices and biases against communism and against the leftists and all this as if as if capitalism works or could work without the state and without the subsidies and without the bailouts and without all the public-private partnerships, which means the capitalist class always depends on the welfare state for them. Always depends on socialism, on state socialism, on public socialism to succeed. And what they want is to privatize the profits and to put the costs on our backs, on the backs of all of us. We should not be afraid or to feel a little bit ashamed, kind of, that our friends or even our family or whoever it is, they call us communists, or not because we are. Because you can be communist if you just try to talk about social equality or social justice or some basic things like universal basic services and things like that in the current context, in contemporary context, you are already a communist. People look at you as a communist just because you are just being it is obvious, should be obvious, but no. That's why they are winning the battle, the war. Just like Warren Buffett said. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing. Yes, there is class warfare going on, and my class, which means the plutoligarchy, is winning. And the guy knows a thing or two. If you are middle class, lower middle class, or even upper class, and you believe that you are part of the club, the capitalist club, you don't understand that you are, or among many people that belong to these classes, it might be only a temporary situation, because for many especially in the middle class and lower middle class, it's very easy that what you take for granted, it can be lost very easily. So do not. There is no reason to be anti-communist. There is no reason to not understand that we need left-wing policies, even for those that do not want, or those that really believe that the capitalist system is it's a good system. They need to understand that capitalism is about accumulating wealth and private property. Such the concentration of wealth and private property will always result in poverty and inequality, because that's the process. That's why we have booms and busts. The booms and the busts, they are both good only for once. I mean, when the boom, it might be good for you as well, but when the bust comes, it's not good for you, but it's still good for them. That when they grab a lot of real assets for pennies on the dollar. So even for those pardon me, for those who believe that capitalism is the right system, there is no alternative, I think that there is still need in a democratic system for left-wing policies to temper, to time. I mean, I don't know the word right now. I mean, to make capitalism to make it more not run wild, because the system itself is a dysfunctional system that will destroy everything, because that the idea of unlimited accumulation of wealth and private property just drives the worst people in society to accumulate no matter what, and they don't care about the consequences, because for them it's a question of concentration of power and wealth. It's control, power and control. In private hands and families. So this is not that's why when people do not understand that when they buy into the right-wing the right-wing strong man virtues, which means that values, family values, traditions, against wokeism and immigration, because the immigrants are criminals, and and then the lefties are responsible for everything that's wrong with our societies. Do not buy it by its face value, because it's not like, the reality is not like that. It has not been the leftists that have been destroying our society. It has been the capitalist class. And you can look and see it and find it. That's my point. That's why we need to understand that the right wing, the nationalists and populist and fascist right wing that is emerging, that is becoming more mainstream, needs to be. I don't want to say that I don't find it what the countries are trying to do. In France, in Germany, what they did in Romania and elsewhere. They are trying to delegitimize these parties and these organizations. That's not how to do it. It is exactly. I do not want. This party. This is not how I want to do it. I want people to do their homework, because I know that is much. It's easier to just be driven by emotional, by this emotional manipulation. I know it. That's much more than to try to understand the systemic problems, the systemic roots of the problems. I know it. And then you just have somebody to blame, You just it works. It has and that's why we don't learn. And I know that we have our lives we do not have much time, but we also waste the free time we have instead of acquiring class consciousness, understanding how the economy really works, finance, banking, money creation, law. I mean, those things that are the basis, the pillars of our society. Because just talking about democracy and freedom, this is just a waste of time. If we do not understand the laws and the rules and how things are framed and structured in order to keep us poor, in order to keep us weak, that they don't want us to have agency. That's we have to fight for it. And that it is not only a political fight, it is an intellectual fight, it is an ideological fight. So we need to understand the reality in the many layers that is composed. Otherwise, we will be always in the losing side, because manipulation is not going to go away. Propaganda is not going is always going to be used. So I mean, I think we need a much stronger, because what I really believe that we really need to avoid techno-fascism, transhumanist techno-fascism, a technocratic society controlled by tech oligarchs, and a dystopian society and civilization. We need to put an end in the imperialist civilization. It's all over the world. It's not only an European problem. Okay, that's still the pillars of all most of the nations in the world. Not every nation, but there is still this way of thinking about civilization that is imperialistic. And it's also imperialistic because it's about expansion. if not territorial expansion, it's about again the capitalist expansion, the need to find new markets, the need to explore and extract resources. You know, this is imperialistic. This is imperialist mentality, and we need a civilization. I call it ecological, holistic civilization with a political economy, a social and ecological political economy. That's what we really need, and there is the basis for this has to be left-wing the values and principles. As of course this needs to be discussed, not because the ideas of some group or some organization or school of thought are better than other. It's just we need to discuss it and to find a way to organize internationally in order to have a system that can be applied in the more countries the better, because this doesn't work only applied in one country or even in one bloc. There needs to be a global policy. I'm not talking about global governments or nothing of that sort. Not having somebody dictating the global policies. But we need to have an international frame. We need to have international cooperation. We cannot continue the trend, the militaristic trend. 5% of the GDP for militarism, is that the solution for our problems, like in Europe? From 2% or less than 2% to 5%? And you just allow it to happen? I mean, can we not do better than that? Don't we need political parties and organizations that have other ideas for our societies and for the future of civilization and humankind? That's why we need to understand class warfare and why the rich, or I mean the plutocrats and oligarchs of this world are always waging a war, a class war against us. They do not want us to really understand how this system works, how the system is rigged on their behalf to protect their interests, so they call their investments. But they don't ask you where they get the money for their investments. Where does that money come from? They are investors, but where does the money come from? Who creates it? And how? These are questions that need to be answered, and we need to dig, to do our research, to discuss it with our friends and colleagues and family. I know nobody wants to talk about it. That's why I try my best to see if somebody, if one person here, another person there, understands that there is a point in what I'm trying to convey, in the message I'm trying to convey. Because I see, I listen to many voices from different fields, and I learn a lot with them, for sure. I always say that this is true. What we are in bits and pieces of other people's knowledge and experiences. So I'm aware of that. But I also try, in my perspective as an ordinary citizen, to give it to see if somebody sees my point, my view of my own way of understanding it, as a participation in a discussion. Because this is a discussion. This needs to be a public discussion.